The next recommendation comes from the same project, but will be presented by Gwendoline Fife. She's an art conservation consultant currently working at Rijksmuseum and as a researcher on the GoGreen project. She has over 25 years of international experience and a background in chemistry and easel painting conservation. She serves as a director of sustainability and conservation's Greener Solvent project. Over to you, Gwen.
Hello, everybody. So my name's Gwendoline Fife, Gwen. I'm a paintings conservator with a chemistry background, as was said in the introduction, thank you. And I've been working at the Rijksmuseum in GoGreen, most pertinently for today, on helping to develop the green conservation definition and parameters eloquently presented by Caitlin. So following on from both her and David, a most fundamental commonality between our cluster projects and underpinning our project's policy recommendations is our focus on preserving and conserving cultural heritage safely and sustainably. From our perspective, that caring for the original physical material of our heritage is essential for maintaining our civilizational memory and continuity. Illustrating this, less than 3 kilometers from here lies the Palace of Coudenberg. This magnificent residence, full of priceless books and countless works of decorative and fine art, was a seat of power from the 12th to the 18th century, at its high point overseeing rule in all of the Burgundian, Spanish and Austrian Netherlands. Yet you may have never even heard of this palace because it was destroyed, along with all the treasures it contained, just under 300 years ago. A reconstruction can describe the geometry, but it cannot capture the material essence, the values inscribed within, that communicate to individuals and groups across generations. Nothing can replace the real-life experience, which remains possible at the current archaeological site, of walking the actual corridors, of standing by the actual stone floor where Charles Quint was crowned and abdicated, and where it's thought the princess who became known as Snow White might have danced. As John Ruskin expressed in The Stones of Venice, the stones are culture made visible and tangible. Weathering, irregularities, and tool marks tell a story. They are witnesses of material memory and history. Heritage, such as the lost masterpieces, is not renewable or replaceable like information, however valuable that can also be. It is irreplaceably connected to its materiality and specific uniqueness. And we see the proof of this in research findings, that it is the connection to the actual original materials, rather than facsimiles or replacements, that bring the positive impacts, with increasing evidence for how important this is for our well-being and physical health. That's why preserving materiality isn't optional or just a technical concern. It's vital for maintaining our heritage collections. That said, the technical concerns and challenges are not minimal. Accordingly, conservation is often compared to the medical field. But where human bodies share similar structures and functions, cultural heritage patients are extremely individual, often multi-composite and limitless in their variation with novel combinations of specific materials. On top of this, there are further differences due to the object's history, the display or storage conditions it's had, the treatments it's needed, and the decision-making context with the stakeholders involved. Identifying the potential cure varies from case to case, and of course requires high-level expertise and research. EU-funded research and innovation projects have been invaluable in helping to produce this knowledge. I can personally attest to the enormous beneficial impact that this research and sustained support has meant for conservation practice during my career life timeline. In order to support our sector's green transformation, it is further recognised that this inherent complexity must be accommodated with effective strategies for implementations into all areas and levels of decision-making. In other words, reiterating Caitlin, we need integrated mechanism to translate the sector-wide adoption of green conservation, the first recommendation, into practice. And to do this, we've identified that a consistent, connected knowledge transfer loop is needed for supporting and driving the green transformation in our sector. The success of this knowledge transfer loop as a driver has already been demonstrated in our projects, where heritage science, conservation research and expertise have been embedded in the innovative development of materials and methods, alongside applied tools, workshops, and educational module creations. Boosting communications for the next generation of professionals and also the general public, this successful formula has to be consistently adopted. Heritage science is a bedrock for supporting innovations and deepening our understanding of the cultural heritage under our care. This research is essential for solving the problems faced by professionals in order to better treat, conserve, and understand heritage assets. The loop demonstrates that vital success in effecting innovation and new approaches happen at the interfaces of research, practice, and industry, and also recognises that conservators' inputs and feedbacks are particularly critical for the gathering of information and data, and for their knowledge and expertise on the response of the artwork to the potential medicine, which has to be adapted for each treatment scenario. While aiming to reduce the use of hazardous substances in line with SSBD, implementing greener alternatives into practice is therefore complex. It requires integrating expert knowledge with new research to fill information gaps across diverse professional contexts. With the field dominated by SMEs and independent professionals, barriers like limited budgets, time pressures, and restricted influence in the decision-making can be highly impactful. To succeed, large-scale projects must therefore involve practicing conservators in testing and dissemination, which brings us to the need for measurability and applied tools. As mentioned, the Green Conservation Framework was developed in alignment with SSBD, which aims at steering EU innovation towards safer and more sustainable alternatives. This constitutes a rigorous framework for the development of materials, methods, and assessment approaches that enable measurable, comparable, and transparent decision-making. Recognising the complexity in practice, transparent chemical information, evidence-based testing methodologies, validated applied tools, and standardised documentations are needed to ensure reliable and transparent data. Methodologies with this scientific attitude not only reduce the barriers for the individual, but also information to be effectively shared among all stakeholders involved in treatment decisions, and the generated data used to advocate for an informed selection of greener options and solutions. Bringing these greener steps into practice is also where professional education and dissemination becomes key. Even the most effective greener solutions and methods cannot reach practice and become widely adopted without the institutional pathways that education provides. Education and professional networks are therefore recognised as a key, integral part within our knowledge transfer group. In summary, to enable the green transformation, we can conclude that an integrated knowledge transfer loop with conservation science, research, education and training provides a mechanism to bring green conservation thinking into our professional decision-making. Through integration of this loop, the definition can be supported with trickle-down and user-led impacts in all areas of decision-making. Similarly, it supports developing sustainable solutions in co-creation with all relevant stakeholders in cultural heritage conservation and industry. This means conservators must be in the loop, also in the design and testing phases of new methods, and educational content and dissemination with practical testing opportunities has to be embedded in research projects. On this basis, I can share our second concrete policy recommendation, which is to introduce a structurally embedded knowledge transfer loop within EU-funded research, innovation, and education programmes related to cultural heritage and sustainability. In finishing my talk and closing the loop, I would just like to return to where I started, the importance of caring for our physical cultural heritage. And in doing so, I give the final word to the artist Tracy Emin. We never really appreciate or understand what we have until it's gone. As we all know, the world is in a really bad state. So anything good and anything positive, we have to really focus on and be part of and stand up for. Stand up for everything which is good to try and counterbalance against the bad. Thank you very much for your attention.